Hello, everyone. Greetings from here from Cloud Launch and Learn. Welcome to our session. Thank you for joining. We have a guest speaker today. We have Ridwan. He's joining from Lagos, Nigeria, and he has a very interesting, session to present. It's about basically privacy engineering. It's about cloud, confidential computing, and what's the privacy role plays there. So it's pretty interesting topic that we'll bring. So let's welcome Ridwan to the studio. Ridwan, please unmute yourself and welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, Hakan. Thank you. I'm really glad to be here, in the midst of my cool technologist, even though I have a legal background. Thank you very much, Hakan, for the
No,
welcome.
no, thank you. And by the way, if you, for just for the audience here, the Ridwan is also actually a lawyer. So he's a lawyer and it's a privacy engineer, which is, I would say, unique combination, right? You don't meet too many people who are doing that type of responsibilities and jobs. So it's going to be, I believe, very interesting session just to see the privacy from engineering perspective. What's the cloud computing and its relation to that? So I would say, everybody is pumped up. It's a really different type of session. So I want to bring your slides to the studio to make sure that everybody's able to see that, and just give the whole, time to you. So please feel free. I may interrupt you from time to time by appearing back and bringing the questions from the studio. But I want to again greet everyone and welcome Ridwan to start a session. Back to you, Ridwan. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hakan. I really appreciate the warm welcome once again. And just as you said, I would really be glad to receive those questions because I want this session to be interactive as much as possible. And I will just dive straight into the topic of discussion. And mainly, as Elhan has said already, so the topic of the discussion is going to be building privacy enhancing cloud workflows with confidential computing. Although we won't be going too technical, most of the things I will be talking about is just to highlight the importance of confidential computing and how it can actually be used in different use cases, and how we actually got to confidential computing, especially as it has to do with privacy engineering or the privacy space generally. And as I have also been introduced, I'm actually a technology lawyer. I currently work in a law firm, and I also lead a team in the privacy engineering and privacy consulting firm. So I bring the two aspects of privacy together. That's privacy law and privacy engineering, and then of course the middle ground as well, which is privacy operations. So I'm really glad to be here to speak with you. And probably in addition to this, because we're talking about computing, and when you hear about computing, sometimes you think about cloud computing. I also have a very expansive experience or expansive background in cloud or in the cloud. I mean, especially in terms of the three major cloud providers, Azure, GCP, and AWS. And I'm also working or helping companies generally to on their AI governance journey. So without much ado, I will dive straight into my presentation. So so what do we really want to achieve with this discussion? So mainly it's about privacy and data protection. I mean, simply that privacy and data protection compliance and probably customer trust as well. And I mean, everybody knows that privacy is top of concern for most organizations because almost all organizations actually process personal data. So it's really important that companies, comply with privacy regulations all around the world. So there's several challenges, and that's actually not what we're here to discuss today. But you can't deny the fact that one of the challenges that companies are facing presently are encountering presently is privacy and data protection compliance. And I always, when I speak with clients or when I speak anywhere, I always there's always an add-on. I mean, I always put that add-on that it's not just about the compliance, but you shouldn't think about privacy or data protection as a compliance issue, as an headache, because it could also be an advantage for a company. So I mean, from customers, from increasing or improving customers' trust to to improving your competitive advantage, against your competitors. So there are a lot of advantages that privacy and data protection brings to the table. And what's privacy and data protection? I just wanted to quickly go through this, just for those that really want to, that wants a um, a reminder of the definitions. So privacy, when we talk about privacy, we're actually talking about the rights of individuals to control their personal information. So the essence of privacy is giving more control, or giving the control of personal data to the owners of this personal data, the individuals that owns that personal data. So that's essentially privacy. And then an offshoot of that is data protection, which ensures that that's objective, or that objective is attained, or is achieved or achievable. So, and data protection refers to the laws, regulations, governing the collection, use, and disclosure of personal data. I call this the life cycle of personal data. So, right from the collection points to the deletion points, when you don't have access to the data anymore. So that's everything about data protection. It's actually about the laws that ensures that the data, the personal data of an individual is protected, and of course that companies are abiding with different requirements, privacy requirements that's stipulated in those laws. So I'll move on to the next stage, which is privacy by design. So when any company wants to incorporate or build a privacy program to ensure that they are compliant with privacy regulations, there should always be a roadmap, and it's difficult. Sometimes it's actually difficult, or most times it's difficult to attain a privacy compliance when it's not being approached, when it's not being done from a very strategic manner, and that's why we have to discuss about privacy by design, which is a proactive approach to data protection. So what do we mean by privacy by design? I mean, I think I really need to explain better why privacy by design is really important for us to consider, or how we even got to talk about privacy by design in the first place. I mean, almost everybody knows about, would have probably heard about privacy by design, which is an important concept to build privacy capabilities in a company. So when we talk about privacy by design, it's the reason we're talking about it is because sometimes it's actually difficult to build privacy into the systems, or into the ecosystem or the environment of a company if it is not done strategically, just as I have mentioned earlier. And the best way to do it, I mean, this particular concept was couched by Anne Cavokian, a once commissioner of privacy, I think, in Canada. And the reason why this was, she came about this is in order to, fully encompass what privacy is really about, or how companies can effectively or efficiently or successfully implement privacy in their workflows. And when companies implement all these principles, that's what we call them, privacy by design principles. When you have a program, or you have a way of implementing all these principles into your systems, then I mean it's a sure path, or it's a guaranteed path, so to say, to complying with privacy regulations, and also getting all the benefits of privacy. And I'll quickly go through all of the principles just for you to, because the reason we're discussing privacy by design in this discussion is because it also serves as one of the crux of privacy enhancing technologies. It's actually one of the things that a company needs to look at before any privacy enhancing technologies can be or should be implemented in the company's systems. And I mean, you may have that question. That's, I mean, how did we get to privacy enhancing technologies while talking about confidential computing? And the direct answer to that, before I continue to reduce any or to mitigate any kind of confusion, is because confidential computing can be regarded as one of the privacy enhancing technologies that can be implemented, for privacy enhancing purposes or privacy preserving purposes. So we have so going back to privacy by design, the first principle is proactive, not reactive, preventative, not remedial. So what this really implies is that any company really needs they really need to be proactive about privacy, in the sense that you don't need to wait for a privacy incident to happen before you start implementing or trying to look for a solution. Sorry, a solution regarding how to address such privacy issues or privacy incidents. So you should think about privacy from the beginning, from the get-go, even before you start collecting personal data. Not even that, even before you start building your application products or what have you. And the next one is privacy as a default setting. And I believe almost everyone here would have heard about the issue of LinkedIn recently, where the option was toggled on, the option that the LinkedIn generative AI should be trained with, individuals or individuals' personal data was toggled on. And this is an example of, going against the principle of privacy as a default setting, because what this actually implies is that when you have any settings in a product that's processes personal data, then you must ensure that the default settings or the settings or the features that you have in that product are privacy or are user friendly or are privacy centric, in the sense that you shouldn't, because ordinarily you know that you shouldn't collect personal data. I mean, as the case may be, this is on a case by case scenario. You shouldn't collect, but generally you shouldn't collect personal data unless you have consent, or it is based on other legal basis of for processing personal data. So when you have different features that might collect personal data, so the default setting should be something that is privacy that respects the privacy choices of your customers, of your consumers. And the third one is privacy embedded into the design. And what we mean by this is that privacy should be embedded into the design of the. I mean, from the as we said, we're talking about, for privacy by design is about building privacy into your products from the beginning. So what this means is that the design, this could be the architectural design, it could be the cloud design, or whatever environments you are deploying your products or your systems. You must build privacy into that. You must consider that how will this particular design, how will this particular architecture or design affects the privacy of my consumers. So that's really what privacy embedded into design is. And then full functionality, positive sum, not zero sum, you will hear. And that is one of the reasons we really need to discuss confidential computing as well, because we have, sorry, I have an issue here with my power supply was just cut. So if you could just give me a moment. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Elian? So I'm going to continue, and I'm going to try to resolve this issue. So I was talking about full functionality, positive sum, not zero sum. So what this means, I was talking about different arguments regarding or against the use of pets, which is, and actually there are different ethical dilemmas when we're talking about privacy enhancing technologies, in terms of because when we're talking about privacy enhancing technologies, some of these technologies enables companies to process personal data without or to process personal data beyond the purposes that those personal data were collected, without getting the consent of the consumer or of the data subject. And this might not be ethically acceptable. And because of this, we have different, as I said, we have different arguments in terms of how to use pets, that it might not be ethical, or it might not reach the threshold of protecting personal data or complying with data protection laws. So that's the reason. And we have other arguments relating to full functionality as well. That if you're trying to achieve privacy, sometimes you might have to give up cybersecurity issues because you need access to personal to personal data, probably to ensure that certain cybersecurity issues are prevented. And this might be true and might not be true. I mean, as the case may be. And we could even have an argument or a response that pets could actually enable this, where you're able to process personal data in order to have in order to achieve cybersecurity purposes. Why not seeing those personal data? Why enhancing or ensuring or preserving the privacy of the personal data that you're processing? And so essentially, and then another example of an issue with zero sum, positive sum, not zero sum, and full functionality is that there might be some elements that you need to build into your products that might be overlooked because you want to ensure privacy. So what these principles promotes is that there is that possibility of you having privacy and having all other concepts or all other components of your products together, if it is security or of convenience as regards or the usability of your products. So all these can actually be entertained when you're building your products, and you don't need to sacrifice one particular element because you want to build privacy into your systems or into your products. So full functionality, that's the reason you really need to consider privacy by design when building. It's because we need to consider how all these things can be achieved, and not sacrificing one critical components for privacy. So positive sum, not zero sum. And then end-to-end security, full life cycle protection. You would already know that cybersecurity is critical, is integral to achieving privacy. And you will always hear the saying that you can have cybersecurity without privacy, but you can't have privacy without cybersecurity. And I will advise people not to use that saying as a reason to not consider privacy, because the result of not complying with privacy is actually very grave. And the next one is visibility and transparency. Keep it open, which is this has to do with transparency and accountability, as it has to do with how you process personal data of your consumers, of your data subjects. And what this means is, in terms of the privacy notice, in terms of consent and preferences. So there's a lot of things that you need to keep open to your customers or to the owners of the personal data you process in your company. And lastly, we have respect for user privacy. Keep it user-centric. And I regard this as the basis, as the foundation of all the principles, because we're talking about an individual here. So you need to, if you respect your consumers, if you respect your customers, then you will do right by them in terms of using their personal data in accordance with the purposes you've collected it for, or in terms of ensuring that you're complying with data protection requirements in order to give control to the individual. And the end result of this, which is you respecting users' privacy, is trust. Because when you get the trust of your users, of your consumers, then they will actually be willing to give you more personal data, because the trust that you're going to keep that personal data safe and secured. So, and this leads us to privacy engineering, because as you can see on my screen, I regard privacy engineering as the technical implementation of privacy by design. So it's actually the implementation, or you operationalizing the principles that we have under privacy by design. So we have different elements, different things, different components that makes up privacy engineering. And there's a lot, and I just pull this down here for you to for it to be easy for you to relate to how how privacy really, how it relates to engineering generally. And I often advocate for advocates to lawyers like me to really look into privacy engineering. And even though there's a lot of things in terms of you understanding engineering techniques and engineering different engineering concepts or software development concepts, I still I mean, it's even though uh, it is not fully or completely are required for you to code in order to consult on privacy engineering. But I do, I code. But so in essence, what I'm saying is that you don't really need to be a code guru or a full software developer or engineer to be able to dive into privacy engineering. It could be a collaborative a collaborative thing where the privacy engineering consultants works with engineering the engineering team, the software developers, and ensure that privacy is built into the systems and products that are being deployed. And when we talk about privacy engineering, we are really bringing two things together, as I mentioned earlier, which is privacy law, privacy regulations, the requirements of privacy laws and regulations, and engineering techniques or engineering concepts in order to ensure that your products or your applications are privacy centric or privacy preserving or privacy respected. And I mentioned some of the engineering strategies and techniques that can be put into use in order to achieve, basic. I don't want to call it basic now, but you can achieve a minimal or a very good, privacy outcome. What I mean by this is there are different techniques that doesn't really need any tool or any technologies, so to say, any add-on technologies in order to achieve privacy in your ecosystem, probably in your databases or in your systems. And this has to do with how your databases are kind of structured. When we talk about distribution, isolation, exclusion, strip, and destroy, what we mean by this is how an engineer builds out the capabilities of their systems. You could code into, or you could program your systems or your databases to ensure that when a particular process or when a particular workflow is being called upon, it isolates those specific data. That's what we mean by isolation. Sorry, it isolates specific types of specific data types and process those personal data. So that's why I initially called them basic, because these are you using privacy engineering techniques to achieve these kind of outcomes, which are privacy respecting and of course promoting privacy practices. And then when we talk about exclusion, this is also talking about, I believe, or let me talk about strip, because we don't have much time. So when we're talking about strip, it means when you have specific data sets that you've collected from a particular individual, you are stripping off, and you want to process certain personal data. You've programmed your database or your SQL call, so to say, in a way that it's only selects or strip off the particular data sets or the data types that are needed for that particular workflow. And then there is also a way that you could also build your systems or your infrastructure in a way that when you're collecting more data, and this is as a result, what you want to achieve with this is the data minimization and principle of data protection. So where you collect more data, or you're collecting data that is not needed, or data that you unknowingly collect, then the system should be able to see this, should be able to trigger an alert which deletes that particular data sets. So these are different engineering techniques and strategies that could actually be adopted when building systems. And then we have other different privacy engineering techniques that can actually be used to also enhance privacy. We have pseudonymization, anonymization, encryption, and some other ones. And so these are actually different when we talk about pseudonymization and anonymization. So the difference between these when it comes to privacy regulation is that when we're talking about pseudonymization, it means the data is still you're doing your best to ensure that you are. I mean, there are different things that can be achieved with pseudonymization, but the thing is that it is still, I mean, that's kind of a personal data that is being pseudonymized is still subjected to the data protection laws. It's still under the purview of data protection regulation in the sense that it's still personal data. What you're just doing is trying to, to an extent, mitigate the, that's why I said there are different purposes you could actually achieve with pseudonymization. It could be because you want to mitigate the cybersecurity or privacy incident that might come out of the use of that personal data, or you're trying to ensure that you're not processing the personal data beyond the purpose of which it was collected and things like that. But when we have anonymization, which is you anonymizing, you making sure that the data is unidentifiable, it is not linkable to a person, to an individual, then it means that is outside the purview of data protection. So if you're processing such personal data or such data actually, because it's not a personal data anymore. It's not personal. It's not linkable or identifiable, linkable to any person. So, but the thing is that the threshold of achieving anonymization of particular data sets is very high, and for you to have true anonymization, I mean, it's a long work that you need to ensure that you really have this. I mean, in order to prevent any compliance issue. And then I will also quickly talk about encryption, which is the basis of many of the PETs privacy enhanced technologies that we're going to be discussing. Encryption is, encryption is, of course, it's you encrypting personal data, most times, or data generally, most times when you're transferring the data or when it is being stored, when it is in rest. So, but what PETs does, as we're going to discuss shortly, is that it takes it to the next level, which is ensuring that you can also, I mean, we talk about some of the privacy enhanced technologies that can also ensure that you can process personal data while it is being encrypted. Because the standard thing is that data are encrypted when you're transferring or when it is in storage, but not essentially when it is being processed. And we could have different privacy incidents, you can have different privacy incidents when you're processing personal data. When processing personal data and that personal data is not encrypted. So these techniques that we're going to be discussing in a bit will ensure that your personal data is fully protected in accordance with regulations. And we have different types of privacy enhancing technologies. And these are some of them: secure multi-party computation, trusted execution environments, homomorphic encryption, differential privacy, synthetic data, federated learning. And I will quickly touch upon this so that I can talk more about confidential computing and how you can actually adopt this in your company. And essentially we have two of these privacy enhancing technologies that can be used as a basis of confidential computing, and these are secure multi-party computation and trusted execution environments. But mainly we have trusted execution environments being deployed to ensure that you have you can you can implement or deploy confidential computing when you are using cloud, when you're processing um, cloud operations or cloud workflows. So secure multi-party computation means essentially it means where you have different parties coming together to, they call them trustless parties sometimes, because the different companies, but they want to achieve a particular purpose, probably like the fraud detection issue in the financial technology space, where you have different companies bringing data together to ensure that fraud issues are being detected. So they need to share personal data to, probably, or, personal data sets for them to ensure that this kind of issues are mitigated or are addressed. And then we have trusted execution environments, and this has to do with, I also regard these sometimes, I mean, I know I mentioned isolation initially when I was talking about privacy engineering techniques. When we're talking about trusted execution environments, it's I talk about it's a kind of a form of really advanced isolation, because it's really about you isolating, having an isolated space to process personal data. So in order to and of course that particular space, we call it secured enclave, is hardware based, where in the sense that it goes as it's good, it's not just software, it goes as deep as to the hardware level, where it ensures that even the cloud provider does not have access to such processing, and any components outside it, if it is code, individual, or any technology, in the cloud, will not be able to access it without the appropriate access control, or the appropriate access. Then we have homomorphic encryption, which has to do with you processing personal data when it is encrypted. And we talk about differential privacy, which is you adding noise to personal data sets to ensure that it doesn't give out it doesn't have any personal elements when you have the outputs. Then we have synthetic data, which is you coming up with unreal data sets. And then we have federated unreal data sets in order to achieve a particular purpose. We have federated learning, which is you processing personal data outside your systems. It could be you processing personal data at the level or on the mobile device of your consumer, and then sending the outputs or the results to your systems to ensure that you're not collecting any personal data from that individual. But generally, before we move on, it's important that to understand that some of these pets, or many of them, actually has some drawbacks that really need to be considered, and some of them are also not completely developed to an extent where you can have complete um, complete confidence that it's going to really secure, or you're going to achieve your privacy compliance with them. And but generally, that's the reason we have different ways or different methods of looking at how to implement these different privacy enhancing technologies on a particular project. And sometimes you see combining different pets, different personal enhancing technologies to achieve a particular end or a particular purpose. So there's a lot of work going into developing these, and a lot of work also into combining different pets to ensure that you have a secure and private data processing. And the more reason we're having these, or the reason we really need pets, especially privacy, confidential computing, which is our core focus, is due to many reasons. And of course, many of them are actually, of course, they're all tied back to privacy regulations. because we have restrictions in terms of transfer of data, and you might not have. I mean, depending on the situation, you might not have a an appropriate method of transferring data across borders. And then we have compliance risks generally, which takes many of these um, into consideration. And we have third party access, where you want another party to access your data, even if it falls under appropriate transfer of data. But you really need to probably you're not confident that the third party is going to protect your personal data responsibly. So you really need to ensure that you really need to ensure from your own end that passing or sharing personal data with that third party is protected to a large extent. And then we have unauthorized access, and this privacy and technology is going to be a kind of added way for you to prevent unauthorized access if it is internal or from external um, you know from external sources. And then we have sensitive data exposure, and especially if that's the reason we have we have many of the companies that implements or deploy pets are mainly in sensitive sectors like banking or financial space, and even the healthcare sector. So when you process personal sensitive data exposure, you really need to consider deploying or adopting a secure way of processing this sensitive data that you have access to. Then we have user trust and transparency, and this can really show as a form of transparency and as a form of gaining more trust when you tell or when you inform your customers or consumers that you're protecting their personal data, or you are adopting different technologies to ensure that their personal data has been protected. Then I believe this will increase their trust in your products. And of course, it's also going to empower your transparency obligations to data controllers. Sorry, to data. To the regulators generally. So quickly talking about computational computing, because we have different implementation of these, and one of the ones I really enjoy, and for another reason being that Azure is also in collaboration with the Confidential Computing Consortium, which is an organization which is at the center of developing confidential computing technologies. So I often like using Azure because they have different capabilities to ensure that you are deploying your operations or your cloud workflows in a confidential computing environment. So one of the places I can advise listeners to go to look at how, or to explore how confidential computing can be deployed or can be adopted is actually the Azure cloud, because there's several options for you to choose from different infrastructures, computing infrastructures in the cloud. So as I said earlier, that there are, sometimes confidential computing can actually it is used interchangeably with TEEs, which is trusted execution environments. So you can, when you're referring to confidential computing, you can also refer to that concepts as trusted execution environments. And as explained earlier, confidential computing really refers to you processing or ensuring cloud workflows in a secure enclave, or in an isolated environment where anyone that is not given access, cannot access it. And the reason it is also, groundbreaking is because even the cloud providers, even the cloud provider that is that enables access to cloud computing cannot have access to it. Or even if you're in the same you're in the same tenants with different users, cloud users, then where if there are any incidents, then your processing within that secure enclave, within that trusted execution environment is guaranteed. So of course, as I said, what confidential computing allows, what it enables you to do is, secure data processing. It also isolates sensitive data in memory with TEEs, and it also simplifies compliance in terms of going through. I mean, if there are several, if it is difficult, or or if it is almost impossible for you to achieve, transfer of data or sharing of data, through any of the mechanisms that a particular jurisdiction might have, then I think this is as far as you can ensure that the personal data of your consumers, of your users, will be protected, then I think it's a very good thing I mean, it's a very good option for you to explore. So it actually simplifies compliance, and then of course it also gives control to the user, because you're not processing personal data outside, so to say. As I mentioned, it's an ethical dilemma as regards that control initially, but the idea is that it gives you control. It gives the users more control, because you're not using, or you're not exposing the personal data of that individual to an unauthorized processor or user. And then, as I mentioned, there are different use cases for Azure confidential computing in different environments or in different sectors, which includes healthcare, finance, and the government. And healthcare, in the healthcare sector, it can actually be used to protect patients' records, where it has been shared with. I mean, where if you're in the US, the US jurisdiction of the US sector, you will have heard a lot about HIPAA, and I mean, there's a lot of strict requirements on the HIPAA, and I believe that Azure confidential computing, or confidential computing in essence, is a way of ensuring that you're not flouting those privacy requirements or even security obligations under HIPAA. So, and then I mentioned secure financial transactions earlier, and the issue of fraud detection, within that ecosystem, where we have different providers coming together to ensure that that issue is protected against. And then we have governments, which is it could be a way of securing sensitive personal data, whichever personal data that could be. I mean, it could be any national identification that can be safeguarded, through the use of confidential computing, to ensure that those kind of information are not exposed, or they are not subjected to unauthorized access. And then, as I said, I intentionally put this here to to tell you about some of those options for you to use when you're in the cloud, in order to implement confidential computing. And we have some cloud some chips that actually enhances or provides options for you to deploy confidential computing, including Intel and AMD. So one thing you could do, as I said in these two bullets, is that you can further integrate CEs into existing workflows, because this is I mean, when we're talking about, I mean, you can use it you can use confidential computing with different cloud computing models. It could be um, it could be IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS, where where you can select any type of computing technology to deploy or to for operations in terms of deploying or operationalizing your different workflows in the cloud. And then we have monitoring and auditing for security and compliance. And I mentioned this earlier that it's really important because even and that's one of the ethical issue with using pets, including confidential computing, and that is probably the confidence it could give you that you've really probably completely de-identify or anonymize personal data, and then you're confident that you know you're not within the ambits of privacy regulations, and but this might not be so, or even if it is so, it's still really important for you to monitor the use and all these, if there are any gaps, any compliance gaps with the use of these technologies. And this is quite important. I can't really overemphasize that it is really important for you to still deploy, or for you to still adopt different privacy best practices, including documentation, and all the elements of a privacy program, a a, 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 an efficient privacy program. And I think we've come to the end of my presentation, and I hope I've been able to manage the time. And I think I'll leave you with, the, the push to start building privacy enhancing cloud workflows with confidential computing to enhance, your privacy compliance, journey or roadmap. And you can also fuel your innovation with innovative technologies, because we hear that argument a lot that that privacy disallows you or prevents you from from embarking on innovative ideas, or embarking on innovative things, but that's really not true. And a way of knowing this is because we don't have regulators going against pets, because it's actually, you will even find privacy professionals telling you that this is embedded, or this is required, or it is required, and it is even mentioned in the GDPR, where it says where it's making references, or references to different technologies. I mean, when we hear about technical measures, so that can also be interpreted to mean these different privacy engineering techniques and privacy enhancing technologies. So you shouldn't be afraid of um, of innovating, as far as you are building or designing privacy into the designs of your products, or into the architectural design of your products. So I wish you well in terms of with your product development. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Ridwan. So, do you want to come back to the stage? I think your something happened to your camera. So
Yes.
I'm not sure if you have a software that automatically shuts it off due to privacy concerns or anything like that, that I'm not aware. So it can be anything, right? If it's automated, you never know. But it was really interesting session. If you can join back or open the camera, I want to say big thank you for your presentation. Um, it's very interesting and engaging. I would say as a kind of follow up. In terms of references to the information that you presented and topics that you covered, is there any reference point, maybe any contact or any site that you want the viewers to go and ask questions, get in touch with you? Further resource, I see. So you have your email there. You have your name on the LinkedIn. Thank you, and you have references from some Microsoft resource and as well as some third-party posts. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I see.
Yeah,
All right.
apologies. I'm trying to change
Camera.
um my position. Yes, I
I
had
think,
the
yeah,
power
you came up,
supply.
but it's kind of in. It's kind of like showing as a dark. I'm not sure if you now it's light. Yeah, now you're good. I see you.
Can
Yeah, go ahead, please.
now great.
What your closing remarks for the audience? Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, I think you can actually reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to provide more information, and you have my email there, and I've also provided some of the resources that you can also look at for more information on confidential computing. And I will really be glad to talk more. I mean, to discuss more, with the audience regarding the intersection of privacy law and privacy engineering. I really look forward to hearing from everyone because it's quite an interesting space. I mean, merging those two things together. I mean, in terms of you ensuring that you want to, comply with privacy regulations, and also using your privacy, capabilities to ensure this because we have it's big data, so it's difficult without privacy engineering for data intensive companies to to really comply with privacy really important, and including privacy by design are really important and crucial elements of achieving privacy. And as I said initially, it goes beyond the privacy compliance. There are really lots of things
Right.
that you can really do with privacy, customer trust, competitive advantage, and even ethical elements of using personal data of individuals. Thank you very much, Alan.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for summarizing this, Ridwan. Again, thank you for interesting session and everyone joining our studio. I know that Alan Florence he appeared and say hello. So hello actively from here to you, Alan, and everyone who is watching us. Thank you for your participation. If you have any questions, we'll be here for a few more minutes. You can type that in the chat, and we'll gladly bring that into our studio to get addressed by our speaker. But yeah, this is really interesting topic, and it sounds to me more like a process, right? Ongoing process that when you are building your product, your solution, and you want to make sure that it takes into concern the privacy of the end users who are going to use, how they're, how it is basically respected during the engineering process when product is working and providing the services. You need to take that into account, and that that's a new, I would say new, it's an evolving space with innovation that's happening. And Ridwan made this awareness here with his presentation, and he has his contact information here on the slide that everyone who is interested and want to have a follow-up are more than welcome to go and check with that. And there's again email and as well as LinkedIn contact from Ridwan, so get connected with him if you have any questions and ask them there. That said, we come to the end of our session. Thank you everyone again joining, and thank you our speaker Ridwan for speaking today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you everyone.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye everyone.